Hello, in this presentation I'm going to try and explain the refugee crisis in Libya, what caused it, what conditions are currently, and what can be done about it. Since 2011, headlines have blazed with the plight of the refugee immigrants fleeing Africa for Europe in dilapidated fishing vessels and rubber rafts via the Mediterranean. Just off the island of Lampedusa, a boat sinks with 360 lives lost. 27 dead after boat capsizes in the Mediterranean. 36 migrants drowned last week when their boat capsized off the Libyan coast. Some 200 rescues from boat that went down south of Italian island. Italian sailors rescue 109 migrants from a rubber boat in the sea between Libya and Italy. Boat sinks near Chahura off the Libyan coast with around 200 feared dead. 54 immigrants die from thirst on a boat from Libya to Italy. Reports of children among 500 killed by human traffickers when immigrants refused to move to a smaller boat. At least 17 people died when boat carrying hundreds of migrants sank in the waters between... Well, okay, you get the picture. But why? Why are all these people risking their lives and leaving what little they had behind when the chances look so grim? To answer this question, we have to go back in time about 100 years. We all learned in school at one point or another about the scramble for Africa and the white man's burden and all the fancy titles that European countries put on the colonization of Africa. While some intentions were good, it was unarguably about money. Money from exploiting Africa's natural resources and her people. In bearing this burden, civilizations and ways of life were destroyed, people were oppressed, and they were left with ineffective governments that were weak, unstable, and susceptible to corruption and overthrow. The introduction and indoctrination of so many different politics and religions, coupled with a lack of, supervision from the west of the world, has left Africa to fend for herself. It seems that after everyone gave up on Africa, we just kind of looked the other way. With the exception of Clinton and Somalia. Yeah, way to go, Bill. The lack of military strength mixed with the infiltration of Arab radicals, the lack of international cooperation and cohesiveness on the part of the individual African states has resulted in bloody border skirmishes, civil war, and now fast forward to 2011, the Arab uprisings and mass exodus out of Africa. There are several factors that led up to what is known as the Arab Spring, this Arab uprising. It was actually the perfect mix of patriotism and social movement. As the population of Arab countries had more than doubled between 1975 and 2005, political and economic structures just couldn't keep up. While Africa has had a long history of political struggle, this population surge, coupled with the incompetencies of the ruling elite, skyrocketed unemployment rates and plummeted living standards. This unemployment was a transcending issue that touched educated classes as well as the poor. When hardship strikes, most people will tell you to look for the light at the end of the tunnel, but in the Arab nations of Africa, there was really no light to look for. Average citizens surviving on $2 a day watched as the corrupt crony capitalism of the ruling families continued to create fortunes for the elite. The call of the people for the fall of the regime united secularists and Islamists, left-wings, and liberals. This leaderless revolt with spontaneous protests has relied heavily on social media, as I'm sure we all remember baby Facebook. Mosques have been used as central meeting places as authorities cannot shut them down, but unfortunately the state response of these Arab nations to the protests has been, as one reporter described it, predictably awful. Their policies ranged from dismissal to panic, and from police brutality to piecemeal reforms that came too little too late. The attempts to squelch the protests led to civil war in Libya and Syria. As one of the results of the Arab uprisings in 2011, the previous dictator of Libya, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, was removed on accusations of human rights and later killed. There has been no stable government in Libya since, if you could call his regime stable to begin with. This has left around 1,700 armed groups fighting for control. All of the chaos and unrest of the civil war in Libya has made it easier for smugglers to transport people through the country, and as it seems that the rest of Africa has caught on to the leaks in the border, people are flocking to the disarrayed state in hopes of fleeing poverty via the Mediterranean in unprecedented numbers. Some accounts tell the harrowing tales of traveling for a month by foot or in the bed of a truck, only to reach the coast to be held in deplorable conditions in detention centers until it is their turn to board the questionable vessels that may or may not be deemed seaworthy. As we now have 3 international issues at hand, it is the white man's burden more than ever. The first international concern, of course, is the drowning of humans at sea. And this year alone, the death toll is up over more than 1,800. As Italy is part of the Eastern Union, the Italians are growing increasingly frustrated with the other Eastern Union nations' lack of and outright cutting of assistance in search and rescues, not to mention their lack of overall concern or interest in developing a better plan to deal with these drownings and massive numbers of immigrants. The rest of the Eastern Union's cutting of funds was in an effort to dissuade immigrants from getting on the boats in the first place, but that plan has not been working very well so far. The non-helpful countries are being accused of deliberate homicide. Additionally, NATO and the Eastern Union member states that bombed Libya but failed to rebuild the country are being held at least partly responsible for the conditions resulting in this mass exodus from Libya to begin with. Second, it doesn't seem like we can talk about international issues without bringing up ISIS. To complicate matters, as they seem to like to do, the leaders of ISIS have claimed that they're going to send 500,000 migrants to Europe, with disguised militants mixed in among them to disperse themselves throughout Europe. Finally, as of April 2015, an estimated 260,000 migrants have arrived from African countries, mostly via Italy. As thousands more await their chance at fate, Britain, France, Belgium, and Germany, some of the most actively involved countries in colonizing Africa, are for the most part ignoring the problem and relying on the Dublin Treaty and lack of proper paperwork to keep the undesirables from their gates. As one immigrant put it, in Europe it seems there is democracy for some, but not for others. Europe is going to be in the same pot of hot water as the US is, or perhaps worse, in regards to social unrest. African immigrants are now organizing and protesting their lack of social and political power. Meanwhile, the nationals claim that the undesirables are not assimilating correctly, and their home countries just can't afford the resulting problems. As Anders Lusgarden put it, refugees don't need our tears, they need us to stop making them refugees.